everybody. Welcome to the Have You Ever Played podcast, the only podcast on the internet that recognizes a hot dog as a sandwich. I am Matt,
We
aka
don't.
Matt Fondude, and James has some opinions on that statement.
We don't recognize hot dogs as a sandwich. They should get their own categories on menus. If you
Okay,
only have one
so
hot dog, you are not a hot dog place and you shouldn't have a hot dog.
this is a side quest, so we're gonna just go crazy with whatever topic we want to talk about. We're gonna talk a little bit about the Game Awards post, but we were having a pre-stream conversation about hot dogs, and this is such a stupid conversation, right? Because I see like there's so many people who are like, oh, pineapple on pizza, ha ha ha. Like, is a hot dog a sandwich? Is water wet? Like the really dumb, like novel questions. But legitimately, if we are gonna take a serious stance on a hot dog sandwich, I do think a hot dog classifies enough as a sandwich that if you have a menu at a restaurant and you only have one hot dog, if you only have like a hot dog on a bun as like at your restaurant, like say you have like a stand outside and they're selling cheeseburgers, hot dogs, stuff like that, you can put the hot dogs with the sandwiches if you have a sandwich category. Now, if you have more than one hot dog type, then you can have hot dogs as their own category. That's what I would assume. And then maybe if you have a sausage hot dog, like if you have a hot dog and then you have like a sausage uh on a bun as well, that could quantify as that similar category. That's my
So
take at least.
I'm doing a little of research. Apparently, the closest thing that you could classify a hot dog as is a taco.
Yeah, okay. I could
So
see
that's
that.
that's the real question we should be asking: Are hot dogs tacos?
But what makes a taco a taco? The shell,
I don't.
the shell,
I don't know. I'm reading. I'm
the
reading this
shell
article
shape.
right now.
Because what about a wrap? Because that uses a tortilla potentially. And then because if a taco is literally classified based on the like crescent moon shape of its carrying unit, then I don't understand. Like there's way more elements I think that go into a taco, and then you could have a hard shell or a soft shell taco.
All right, I'm reading this argument. So this guy said, after much deliberation, this guy's named Joseph Westhoff, by the way.
Hmm.
Uh, After much deliberation, I concluded that a hot dog is a taco. This is because the shape of the bun, the intention and makeup of the bun, and the contents of the hot dog. Firstly, the shape of a hot dog is the most crucial piece of information as to why a hot dog is a taco. The hot dog bun is described as an ellipsoid, a
Okay.
surface all plane sections of which are ellipses or circles. This is then
Yeah.
sliced
Okay.
down the middle of the bun, keeping the bottom intact. Okay, I'm liking where this is going. Now that the hot dog has been examined and geometrically classified, we can explore a taco shell. A taco shell can also be classified as an ellipsoidal, since, since all surfaces of the taco shell are circular or ellipses. Furthermore, the taco shell remains intact on the bottom of the taco. While a taco shell may be thinner due to the ingredients used, it has the same shape as a hot dog bun. A hot dog is most closely defined as a taco.
So if you put the taco contents right into a hot dog bun, that's a taco.
Perhaps.
If
Yeah,
if you if
yes.
you put ground meat and like cheese and sour cream in a hot dog bun, that's a taco.
I mean, people put all those on their hot dogs.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah. Think
following the
think about that
logic
one.
that
Think about that one.
if it's an ellipsoid whatever shape, I don't think the shape of the container determines whether or not it classifies as anything else.
Man,
That's just odd. I don't know. This is a dumb conversation. This is a video game podcast, okay? This
man.
was a joke intro that has gone too far.
Gamers
Um,
eat hot dogs so they don't care about their health. So this technically is connected to video games.
well, a real gamer will guzzle a glizzy in one gulp.
Did
You
you know
don't
that on
actually
average, one
chew.
hot dog will take 30 minutes off of your life?
Is that sounds? I'm not gonna check that fact, but that sounds correct. So I will agree.
I'm pretty sure that's true, actually.
I don't know.
I'm gonna like
Statistically, I
fact check
feel
it
like
really quick. So yeah,
that's a.
um,
I think fact checking will ruin our podcast. So we just have to make wild claims
somebody did a
with
whole
no proof.
study where on average somebody lost 27 minutes of healthy life. But when you add ingredients, it actually adds to 36 minutes. So
He
it's
was
not,
just
it's not
cramming
necessarily
hot
that
dogs
you'll
in his
like
mouth.
die on the spot 30 minutes earlier because you ate a hot dog, but it's like you'll be healthy 30 minutes less.
I mean, any bad food for you,
Yeah.
I guess. Anyway, that was an aside far too long. We
Yes.
had watched the Game Awards. We're probably not gonna talk too much about it because we did like 3 episodes now on like the Game Awards. But
Yeah.
uh, do you have any takeaways? Do you have any games you're excited for that you saw that were announced? Or well, yeah, you do. I think I know you do.
Yes. Remnant 2.
Hmm.
Remnant from the Ashes 2, baby. They shortened it to Remnant 2 because they want to be like Gears of War. I Cool. Apparently, I was looking desperately for new information, like lists of mechanics that weren't in the original game, and they say they have classes now.
That's cool.
So Pog. And Hades 2. Cool.
Good year for twos.
Yeah, big 2 year.
Death Stranding 2, which I'm
Yeah,
excited about because never beat Death Stranding, but it actually got me to launch the game and play it again. So I'm gonna beat it. We're doing it. I
Yippers.
was just playing before the podcast.
Then we got the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order sequel, Star Wars
Oh
Jedi
yeah.
Fallen Order 2, Jedi Survivor, whatever name. It's a 2. It counts. Uh, what else? Diablo 4 is cool. I like Diablo.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a recently converted Diablo fan.
Mm-hmm. Now, which Diablos do you like? Because there's a very big difference between like Diablo 2 and a Diablo 3. You know.
Yeah, I played Diablo 3. I played a little bit of Diablo 2, but that's been a while. But more recently, I've played 3.
Yeah, I played 3 on launch. I didn't actually get to play because the classic Diablo 3 thing was when that game launched, you could not play the game. It was like server overload. It was one of the first it was almost like an MMO launch where you just couldn't connect to your always online game.
Mm-hmm.
That game went through a lot of weird stuff, like the cash shop, the auction house where you could sell items in game for real money, which was a really weird concept when you given the idea that you can, kind of hack in your items,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, that,
Um,
that was weird. I never really played Diablo 3. I think I had
mhm.
tried later, but I did play Diablo 2. Um, after finding a copy of Diablo 2 with the DLC at a thrift store for like $5, and the code
What?
code worked on BattleNet.
Oh my god.
So yeah, that's how I got a lot of weird
Man.
games and Sims DLC.
Yeah. I guess my hype for Diablo 3 slightly died down when they said, "Oh yeah, if you pre-purchase the game, you get into the open beta earlier." And I'm like, "Okay, well maybe I'll pre-purchase it." Open it up, first thing I see is that it's $70. And it's like that's already a red flag. And then the second thing I see, oh man, the second thing I see is they have a battle pass.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like AAA games have been moving toward the $70 with Battle Pass model, which is just so
Yeah.
stupid. It's like the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. It's like maybe I was actually considering playing it. I'm like, oh, it could be fun. It's $70, and there's a Battle Pass, and there's like 100
Yeah.
microtransactions. It's just like, why?
Yeah.
Just
So
make
like
I don't know
I
money.
guess to clarify, my problem with the $70 game, if that extra $10 was going to devs, it'd be fine. But there's lots of things that point to it not being the case, and it's just kind of it's weird.
Yeah, and I mean it's $70 for like an unfinished game that's going to get a new version a year later anyway. So
Hmm.
I don't know. You just kind of I haven't really played that many AAA releases in a while.
Yeah. Speaking
Stuff
of
like that.
actually of like different versions, actually, I don't know if this is like a hot take. I'm not too crazy about games having like a bunch of different versions when they come out. Like the deluxe edition, the champion edition, the legendary edition. I understand if it's like, oh, this edition like has a statue or like a concept art book, like that's cool. But like when it's like you get all these weird little like things, I'm just kind of like, well, I don't really feel that's necessary, especially when it's like stuff that you'll only use in like early game in the case of like an RPG or looter shooter or something.
Oh yeah, I think it's a pretty common take just to not be interested in those pre-order bonuses. And honestly, it gets
Yeah.
pretty crazy when there are certain games that'll have pre-order bonuses at different locations. So it's like you'll get this store,
Oh
like the
man.
Best Buy pre-order bonus or the GameStop pre-order bonus. And yeah, I haven't really thought about pre-order bonuses in a long time.
Yeah, I
I
think they're a
remember,
lot less
yeah,
common nowadays.
I remember Pokemon actually used to do some pretty like interesting ones. I would pre-order like the Pokemon games, and they would give you like little like figures of like the legendaries, or they would do some kind of fun stuff. And I mean that was like kind of stupid anyway, but they would give you a little something.
Hmm.
Um, I think deal like pre-order slash deluxe versions of games are always like awful. And I really hate it when you're playing a single player game and you have some sort of DLC item that you start the game with and it just is in your inventory and you can't tell. So you'll be playing a game. There's some like what are some games that do this? Fallout New Vegas gives you 1,000 things at the beginning of the game if you have all the DLC.
Oh boy.
It gives you all the notifications and it gives you a bunch of items. Monster Hunter World. I don't think it's necessarily you need the DLC, but that game has an entire armor set and weapon that exists so you can speed run through the main story to get to the DLC and you don't realize
Oh yeah, I actually remember that.
yeah, the defender set, which I didn't
Yeah.
realize was meant to do that. So I was like, "Oh, this is like I want to do explosive damage or whatever it is in that game." And oh, this set is really cheap and really good. And I was running around and I'm taking like no damage and one shotting everything. And I'm like, wow, this is strong. And I knew a lot of friends who played Monster Hunter World and all were using that set and they thought they were really cool. And then any amount of difficulty appeared and they just like basically quit the game because they were just like coasting the whole game. They never actually learned the mechanics of the game. They were just
Yeah.
being carried and
Hmm.
then they fought anything that was more difficult, and it was like, oh nope, time to quit. So
Man.
not a great item.
What else? I mean, yeah, pre-orders got. Remember when they used to make you pay like $5 for the pre-order, and now you can just straight up pre-purchase the game instead?
Yeah, that's a GameStop ism, though. I think
Yeah.
that's a very GameStop heavy thing.
What does GameStop do nowadays? Aren't they supposed to go under like 3 years ago or something?
So here's the deal: like a lot of the GameStops are closed now. A lot of them are in the malls, and they're basically so the GameStop bought ThinkGeek, which was a website that would sell like nerd related merchandise. And actually, I had
Hmm.
used ThinkGeek before they were acquired by GameStop, I believe. I don't know if they. I'm pretty sure they were independent before GameStop bought them.
Yeah.
But you could buy things like I have a little like Aperture Science mug and like a Portal Sentry, like stuff like that you could buy. And then GameStop bought them, and there were physical Think Geek stores, and I think there still are.
Hmm.
Basically, it's kind of like a Hot Topic, but more gamer stuff and Funko Pops everywhere. Although I think they're trying to liquidate all their Funko Pops because no one really cares anymore.
Yeah. I remember last time I went to a GameStop, I kind of got the feeling like, oh, they're starting to transition into something different.
Hmm. Yeah, it's harder to be a brick and mortar game store when one, if you want something like that, it's usually a collector, so it's someone who's like wants to buy a physical copy of like a Switch game or something.
Hmm.
Kids, I believe nowadays will most likely just be downloading games for the most part. So
Yeah.
or you could just go to like a Walmart or a Target or a whatever your local department store thing is and buy them there. Best Buy is honestly not a bad place to buy video games if you're gonna buy physical. Uh,
Yeah.
I, yeah, I haven't bought a physical video game. The last physical video game I bought was Persona 4. And that was just to own it. I mean, sorry,
Hmm.
Persona 5, just to own it to have. Um, the last Switch, like I would say, Breath of the Wild on Switch, which is the first Switch game I bought, is the only physical Switch game I own. So yeah, I haven't bought a physical game in a long time.
Yeah. I think last time I bought a physical game. Oh man. So I got my PS4 at the end of 2018, and I think when I got that, I think I got, was it, when did Death Stranding come out? Was that 2018 or was that 2019?
Uh,
It was
not dropped
2019.
on my
Yeah,
head.
the next year, I think for Christmas I got Death Stranding as like a physical game. I think that was the last physical game I got.
Yeah, I mean, I just think like you're gonna if you buy a game. This is more so relevant on the PlayStation or Xbox. When you buy a game, you get a disc, and usually there's like a 20 gigabyte online update you need to download anyway.
Yeah,
So you're really not popping in your disc and playing the game. So it's just for collecting at this point. And
yeah,
physical media is really cool, and I like all that. But I'm just, it's way more convenient to have everything downloaded, and you can play whatever you want at any time. And it's, I don't know,
hmm I mean, physical media is nice until you have to clean up and like
yeah.
your house is overcrowded with stuff, and you have to start moving things into storage, and then you realize, oh my god, my physical media is taking up my entire garage.
Yeah, I would say physical media that I would want is consoles. So like
Hmm.
it's cool having a Game Boy Micro or like a Game Boy SP, and then I have all of my Game Boy games that I've kept and stuff like that. And maybe if you have a game you like, you'd want a physical copy of it to display. But realistically, getting like a flash cart and then just putting every Game Boy game on one cartridge, uh, just is more convenient. And then
Yeah.
you're not really going to be playing on those consoles anyway. So just like if you want to play a Game Boy game, I could play on my Steam Deck, or I could play on literally every device in my house.
Yes.
So yeah, it's not really like if you want to, and then if you want to play on physical hardware, you can too. But I don't know. It's just a convenience thing, and that's kind of why I like Steam and the PC anyway, or playing
Hmm.
games on PC. It's because when you have a Steam library, well, you just have every game that you've ever bought, and you can pretty much play them. Sometimes games like a Fallout 3 will come along and they just aren't supported on Windows 10, but luckily there's like fans who will make them work regardless. You'll find a way to make it run.
Hmm.
Even the most like niche game like Lego Rock Raiders on PC.
Lego
Uh
Rock Raiders.
yeah, so Lego Rock Raiders, which a game, don't tempt me because I'll make that a game we play.
Oh god.
Cuz it's really good. It's an RTS for babies.
Hmm.
You're playing as Lego people and you are in a cave and it has a banging soundtrack. Please Google Lego Rock Raiders soundtrack right now and you'll hear it. It's absolutely banging soundtrack. And you try to get crystals and there's levels and there's like oxygen failure and there's creatures and you build a base. It's like an RTS.
Oh my
It's really
god.
good. It's also I think on PS1 or something, but actually genuinely a good game.
I'm listening to
But
Rock right now, game version.
but it
Just the
doesn't run
sounds.
very well on Windows 10, and it didn't run at all for a while. And then
Hmm.
I've actually gotten it to run on Windows 10 before because there's like DLL files you need, and someone figured out a whole way of getting it to work. So there's fans out there who are gonna make something run, regardless. If you look deep enough and care
Hmm.
enough, you'll be able to run anything on PC.
Yuppers.
Yep. Or wait long enough, because
Wait long enough.
yeah, like Kingdom Hearts was not on PC until recently, even though it's on Epic Games, and it sucks that it's on Epic Games. But
Man.
and also like God of War, just we're getting everything on PC now, like the Persona series. It's crazy. It's a great time to be playing games. The fact that I can also take my Steam Deck and play like Persona 5 on the go, it's pretty cool. That's kind of
Pretty
crazy that
pog.
we can do that now.
Yep.
No shade on Persona 4 on the PS Vita, that poor misunderstood console.
Oh
Mhm.
man, the PS Vita.
Did you have any Sony portable consoles?
I had a PSP, yeah. I'm trying to think of the games I had on it. I had some Dragon Ball Z Budokai game. Let me check.
I think we talked about this before because you've played Daxter, I think, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, we talked about this before.
I think
But
it was Dragon Ball Z Shin Budokai. It was like an open world game kind, or it was weird. You like roamed around this like island, like you just flew around it, and there were these little like beams in the sky, and the beams were like fights.
hmm,
That was kind of it.
Yeah, being like an anime fan, video games are kind of rough, I guess. I
Yeah.
I was never really like that into. I've told the story a few times on the podcast about how I'm like I was almost a Naruto fan and like almost I just like barely missed anime a lot of the times,
Hmm.
outside of like One Piece. So I never really was playing any of those like Naruto fighting games that exist, the hundreds of those games.
Yeah.
Um, I know there's some good Dragon Ball games. Like there's some like RPGs on like handhelds that are really good. I think on the GBA they're on there. But it's like real rough, and even nowadays, like Jump Force and
Oh yeah. Man,
have you
I
seen?
I
There's so
remember
many
Jump
games
Force.
that are on Steam that always go on sale for like 99% off. They're $60 regularly, but then they go on sale for like $5, and I'm always
Hmm.
tempted because there's always like there's a couple One Piece games, and there's like a One Punch Man game, and I'm like, all right, $5, maybe it's worth playing just to mess around with. And then the reviews are always really mixed, and they're like, don't even bother.
Hmm.
So I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Anime games are a sad topic.
It's
It's
crazy that they haven't made like. I mean, it would be cool if people could write into the podcast at have you ever played podcast at gmail. Or I think it's HYEP podcast at gmail.com. The HYEP podcast at gmail.com. And
shameless
tell us,
email plug.
yeah, and tell us games that are actually like good anime games that are actually good.
There are
'Cause,
definitely some out there. Lots of the Dragon Ball Z games are actually good. I think like
like,
all the
mm,
Budokai ones. Fighter Z was pretty good. The Naruto Storm games are generally all right. Like they're very fan servicey, but they're not like bad games. It's just like yeah, it's very heavy on fan service. Balance isn't always the best.
I'm looking right now at a list of best anime games. Attack on Titan 2 is on here. I don't. I've not. I heard. I guess I
That's
heard the Attack on Titan games were pretty good.
yeah,
Um,
I've heard there are some good ones.
Bleach DS.
I actually played that. That was a good
Is it
game.
good? Yeah, people.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have a very like vague memory of it, but I do remember it was a good game.
The JoJo arcade game, which I have played. That game is kind of fun. It is extremely unbalanced and broken, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah, but the JoJo games, it's like lots of them had JoJo characters before they were even animated. So it was
Hmm.
like, yeah, it was just cool because they all got like voice acted and animated like in the game.
I forgot there was like an Initial D game that was like wild. I think it was only in the
Yeah,
arcade though. Jump Ultimate Stars. It's like some 2D DS game. It's like a 41 Shonen Jump characters fighting each other. Oh man. All right, yeah. This whole list is really not that in depth.
man, rather short list for good anime games.
Yeah. Oh man. I was just thinking about how I started to read some manga stuff. Like
Hmm.
I'm reading One Punch Man and I'm reading like My Hero. I haven't read either of those things in a couple months.
Hmm.
Uh, I was caught up in both of them, but now I've waited a couple months to like. I don't like reading every chapter a week or whatever.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to read something like that, like up to date?
There are a few that I read like that, or actually like six maybe. There's Chainsaw Man, Jujutsu Kaisen, Black Clover, and My Hero Academia. Chojin X. I don't know if you know. Do you know Tokyo Ghoul at all?
I know what that is, but I
Yeah,
don't. I don't know anything about it.
it's the new manga that the creator of Tokyo Ghoul is working on. Then there's one other. Oh yeah, Vinland Saga. But Vinland Saga is monthly, and Chojin X is like it's literally he just releases the chapters when he feels like it.
Oh,
Yeah, like sometimes the chapter titles or the chapter numbers are all weird. Like there's the one that just got released a couple days ago is chapter 33.1, which and there's going to be a 33.2. And like I think how it works is they're like two-part chapters cuz like the chapter on its own isn't like it's not like a complete like chapter arc. Like it'll end on some like I guess other manga do this too without having the chapters being parts, but it'll end on some like reveal that's supposed to like lead into something. Like I don't know, let's say like we're in the past now or something like wow, this person's showing us what happened in the past or what might
That's
happen
some
in the
Kingdom
future, and then it's
Hearts.
like, well, next chapter we'll find out what that actually means, what's actually going on, and not just a single character showing up. But yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, that's some Kingdom Hearts naming conventions with the
Yeah,
point one and point two, whatever.
yeah,
Yeah, I didn't realize you were so like actually caught up with it. You're caught up with a couple things, or at least
yeah.
try to keep up with it. I don't know. It was something about like I would binge read. It was nice being able to read chapter after chapter, like when I wasn't caught up because I could just binge when I wanted to, or I could stop when I wanted to.
Hmm.
But when you do get caught up, it's cool to be current with the story, and then you can read about people's discussions online. But at the same time, it's weird reading 1 week at a time. You kind of forget things that happen because you're
Yeah.
not binging it. It doesn't feel like a complete story. It feels like you're reading half of like a 1/4 of a fight scene compared to reading it all at once and being excited.
Hmm.
It doesn't. I don't think it feels as nice or rewarding. Also, in the case of One Punch Man, you still don't even get to have that cool experience of being caught up because there's a web comic with One Punch Man.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, you watch the anime of
It's
One Punch Man? Huh? Read the manga. Oh, you only read the manga? Read the web comic. Oh, you only read the web comic? Read the Twitter bot. Like read the tweets of
the
ideas.
tweets.
Yeah, you just get
Oh my
gatekeeping at
god.
like the maximum level. You can't even discuss stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, when reading manga weekly, it's like for me, I just read them all on Sundays. And then like the trade off is I don't read as many manga like during the week. Like I don't like start new ones as often as I used to. Because because I've just it's almost like it's like growing up. You can just yeah, I read my manga once a week, and then when I'm not reading them, I don't know. I do other things. It's
yeah,
it's like
it's funny.
it's a career.
I'm so my personality is like I will binge into something like super like crazy for a couple months, and then I'll like completely fall off of it.
Hmm.
Like I will watch every Marvel movie to catch up for Infinity War in a row and be like, yeah, and then I'm like, oh, I have to watch like a couple more. I'm like, I don't care. I'll watch those maybe. I'll binge the next 27 to catch up to the next big event.
Hmm.
I got no weight on that. And like I watched Invincible the show, and I'm like that's
Hmm.
good. And then I'm like I'll read Invincible, and I read all of Invincible, and I was like
Man,
cool. So I just read the whole comic series, and then I'm like yeah that was good. And then I'm like oh cool Ultimate Spider-Man, and I started reading a lot of that, and then I just stopped. And I'm like oh I guess I'll just stop reading comics for a couple of years and then come back to it.
yeah, I think I read Ultimate Spider-Man when it was coming out. That was really good.
Yeah, Ultimate Spider-Man's pretty cool. Uh, Yeah, I don't know. Maybe now's the time to get back into manga.
Mm.
As like a side thing, just in between. I mean, that's kind of the problem though. I have too many things going on where it's like, yeah, I'll read manga in between recording the podcast and then streaming and doing the bass and working full time and finding time to play video games for the podcast and then playing video games for fun. And oh yeah, the whole talking to people and doing other things.
The whole
You know,
interacting thing.
yeah, it's just there's a lot. You can only do so much, So
Hmm.
you gotta have a rotation of hobbies.
Yeah, that actually reminds me. Like I'm kind of we're kind of talking about like binging versus like non-binging stuff. Like I actually think I have a bit of a different approach with like single player games than lots of people would have. Like when I tell people like I almost always have a single player game I'm playing, they like think I'm weird because they're like, well, you don't just finish it. I'm like, no. When I want to play a single player game, I'll play that game. But like otherwise, yeah, I'll play my other games.
Yeah, I think I play games in a very similar way. I like to have one single player game now as well, and with streaming it's different because I'll have stream games, and I've
Hmm.
quickly found out that stream games are a lot different than games you would play single player. Like I tried playing Control on stream and really quickly found out that it's like that is not a good game to stream. I don't
Hmm.
get a lot to talk about. I'm missing a lot of content, and it's not that entertaining. Whereas a game like I don't know, like a random weird game that has a lot going on, like just playing like these weird horror games. they're more entertaining for streaming, and they're more fun to stream horror games because I'm with a chat and we're all like kind of in it together. Than I would
Yeah.
playing a horror game single player is almost seems kind of boring to me. I kind of like the experience with the chat, but when I'm
Hmm.
playing certain games, I would probably rather play them offline by myself. And
Yeah, I definitely
that's been a
understand
couple
that.
games. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess the main downside to me playing single player games like that is sometimes I just like leave one behind, like Doom Eternal. So I actually finished Doom Eternal, but I bought like the super special edition because this was a game I was looking forward to for like years. And I remember I think it actually came out right before COVID started. So I'm like, hell yeah, I'm gonna play this game so much. And then like the DLC didn't come out for like a really long time. Like I'm talking like a year. And like I don't know. It was just kind of like I just never played the Doom Eternal DLC, even though I paid $90 for the game.
Hmm.
Maybe I'll play it one day.
Yeah, I have a really bad habit with DLC and also just finishing games. I will get like 98% of the way through a game and then just not finish it. And
Hmm.
I'm wondering if that's a like a mental thing where it's just like, "Oh, I don't want the game to end, so I'll just not finish it." But I've done that with a lot of games, and also the DLC thing is kind of weird too cuz there's DLC like I beat Witcher 3 and that was a game for a while I was doing the I'm going to get 90% of the way through the game and not beat it. But I
Hmm.
did finally sit down and beat it. And that game has some like really good DLC. Uh and I just haven't gone around to play it yet. That's like, man, maybe one day I'll play it, but I don't
Hmm.
know. It's sitting there, and same thing with all the Souls games. I just for some reason will almost never play the DLC in any of those games. I just think it's kind of like it doesn't really feel like it fits into the main story at all.
Yeah.
I
Um.
recently have played Dark Souls 1's DLC for the first time, and that was
Oh,
fun.
really?
Yeah, I'd
Yeah. I
never
think.
fully beaten it.
Yeah, my experience with Souls games, I have a hard time putting them down and then picking them back up later. Like, so I don't think I ever finished Sekiro. Elden Ring, I'm still like part way through. Then I remember Dark Souls 3. Um, I didn't play it until all the DLC had come out already. And like Bloodborne was the same as well. So I actually haven't had to like experience like, playing a Souls game. Then the DLC drops and I'm like, oh, I need to get like into it again.
Yeah, I think the thing with Sekiro that I never beat that game too, and that's really unfortunate because I've heard like some of the best content is the final bosses in that game.
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
The problem with that game is just like okay, it has the FromSoft thing of you need to get the true ending to experience all the content. And it's like,
Hmm.
all right, FromSoft game. I know you just came out. I gotta Google no spoiler. How do I get the best ending in Sekiro or whatever? And then you read the no spoiler thing and it just tells you massive spoilers.
Yeah.
It's just like you need the demon rice from the demon rice zone and use it on the sacred snake and then eavesdrop behind use oh yeah, once you have the rice, go to the child and go behind the wall and press the eavesdrop button to eavesdrop and then it's like 15 steps. Like who would have figured this out?
And
Why
I
is
think
there
my favorite
15
part, it's
steps?
always with all these secret endings, it's always like, oh yeah, do all this before you beat the giant gorilla, or you can't
Oh
get it.
yeah, or you can't get it. Yeah, literally, and that's why you have to look it up. And then it's just every time.
Oh man, I
It's
remember
every time. It's too much.
I looked up the secret ending for Cyberpunk, and the secret ending's weird. Like you have to sit in silence for unironically like 5 minutes, and then the character says, "Oh, so you don't want to do any of those? Okay." And
Oh
it's like,
god.
and I found out that the quest that you needed to do for it, I was actually about to do that quest without knowing right before I looked up the secret ending.
Well, I'm happy with my spoilers for Cyberpunk, by the way, but I'm happy with my Pan Am ending on my male V character.
Hmm.
Um, however, the problem is that DLC is coming out. I started a female corpo melee build, which
Hmm.
was a lot more fun combat wise because I did a hacker V.
Hmm.
Um, like a Netrunner V, which was so unfun to be honest. You were just playing the same minigame over and over again and insta killing
Yeah.
everything. It was just the most boring thing you could ever do. But now I'm stuck with that if I want to play the DLC and continue for my character.
Oh, you can
So
continue with a character that you beat the game with. I'm pretty sure.
no, no, no. I know. I'm gonna continue with the character I beat the game with. Is there any way to respec in that game? Actually,
You can with mods.
yeah, that might be the move. To
Yeah.
well, I don't know because I
So
like my personality with
yeah,
the sciencey stuff.
I don't remember exactly what they said about respecing when they were asked. I believe they said that they would consider it, but I also think that from their point of view, people might respect to like I don't know, like kind of do some like min maxing, like oh, there's a door that I need 20 body for. Let me respec
Yeah.
really quick, then like go back. And it's like I think the point was that like when you put these points in, these are like it's your character, right? Like this is your role.
See,
So
that's
like
the
yeah,
problem because I like my male V he's super smart male V who is like doing smart stuff, which is why you can do all the Pan Am stuff where you're like, oh, I'm smart, and I'm like, oh, this is nice in a role playing way. I'm like, oh,
hmm
I like role playing as this character. He's cool, and I didn't feel like that with a lot of different games, except for this game. I'm like, oh, cool, but playing as a netrunner, it kind of sucks because you're holding tab and then like going in security cameras, and then you're insta killing people and playing the same mini game 100,000
yeah.
times, and it's such a boring mini game.
Yeah, the moment they taught or the moment I learned how to do like all the whole net running thing, I'm like, I have to change this keybind. I immediately just changed it to
Oh
a mouse
god,
button. I could not press tab every time I was doing that.
it's
And
just
then I just ended
it's
up doing a build where I didn't use it anyway because I just did like I did like a I switched between a body whatever the dexterity stat was. I can't remember the name. And tech build, and then sometimes I take a little bit out of everything to get points in cool.
yeah, I was having so much more fun running around with a bat, killing everyone, doing that. And then also, I watched my friends play, and they were doing like a shotgun build where they were 1,000 miles an hour, one-shotting everything with a
hmm
shotgun. I'm like, why am I even playing as a hacker, dude? It sucks. It's
I
literally just
actually
boring.
Yeah, I actually think one thing that I didn't like about that game, and like part of the reason why respec might actually be like really important to have, um, they require you to go into tech to actually be able to like upgrade your weapons to
Hmm.
essentially be the best they can be, and also there's some like damage buffs in there that like ensure that if you are not going the tech tree, like no matter what, you will be doing less damage. And it's
Yeah.
like I understand where they were going, but I wish I could at least like quite literally craft this legendary weapon that I like earned without needing these like 18 points in tech.
Well, that's the Fallout 4 issue where, hey, Fallout
hmm
4, you need to be 6 charisma or you're not going to play the game. Because if you don't have 6 charisma, then you can't do trade routes or you can't do things with the homestead, or
hmm
the building mechanic. It's like, well, we have this really dumb building mechanic that is kind of cool because you can build stuff and that's fun. But at the same time, it's like, I don't care. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't care, but oh yeah, in order to actually be able to really use this, you need to have a build that you have this much charisma on because otherwise you're locked out of like the key features of making like trade routes and stuff like that,
yeah.
which is just stupid.
I think what's actually also interesting is that some games will have it so like, oh, if you have melee weapons, melee is always it's a strength stat. You don't need the crafting stat to upgrade these. They're dummy things. And then Cyberpunk wasn't like that, and I was kind of sad because I'm like, wow, I can't make my character dumb. I need to have some form of intelligence if I want to do the most melee damage.
I think the counterpoint to this would be, well, then every build's the same. It gives you more variation if you
Yeah.
have these things where you're gated from different content, but I don't know. It's just
Well,
there should be there should be a strength equivalent version if it's like, all right, well, all right, if you're not going tech, I think there are some doors like that because you can use lock
mhm.
picking. It's like tech is like lock picking too, I think, in that game.
I think so.
But I think there are
Yeah.
strength, so it's like if you have 20 strength, you can rip the door open, or you could
Yeah.
tech the door open. And
I
I see
also
that's a
think
good medium.
I also think tech had stuff with grenades and stuff, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, so I feel like they could have done a little more with that because tech's the only one that has two skill trees, I believe. There might be one
I
other. I think. Wait, no, there might be two others, but it's one of the ones that only has two skill trees and it's only like half combat.
I think tech is just kind of required,
Yeah,
regardless of your playthrough, just in general. So
Yeah, I
I
do
don't
kind
know.
of wish what they did is like certain weapons need like certain stats to upgrade.
You know what's kind of weird too about those games, and similar to The Witcher, since it's the same company. You play the game for a couple hundred hours, and you're really committing to one build,
Yeah.
and you don't really know if you're gonna like it until you do it. And I mean, in Witcher, I think I like my build. I did
Yeah.
a heavy build where all of my attacks are just the heavy swing,
Mhm.
and I'm just committed to that. And there's so many other build variations you could do, and it is cool for replay value. But replay value on these games that are like 100 hours, am I gonna really spend 100 hours to replay this game? Like maybe I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not gonna really see
Yeah. I
the
also
other
think open
builds.
world games in my opinion have always had this problem where it's like, you do the main story, you do the side quests, you complete your build. I feel like at that point I don't really want to play the game again that bad. Like I kind of if all these games had some like round based mode where it's just like, oh yeah, you're in this arena, these guys are just spawning every round, just get as far as you can. I think it would be cool. Like I
Hmm.
think Cyberpunk's looking to add something like that, maybe with the DLC. But
You
I think like Borderlands does it very well. Where like in pretty much every Borderlands game, there's some round based thing where you can just check your like basically just stat check your build.
yeah, you might like a Final Fantasy 15. Honestly, I would say to you, if you have any interest at all in that game, if it goes on sale, which I'm sure it does all the time, pick it up and give it a shot because I don't know if it's a game that you would particularly like, but it is an open worldy kind of game like that where
Hmm.
I am replaying it, and it's one of those long, super long games that I did beat. And there is a post game, like there's like a pretty substantial post game in Final Fantasy 15. That is, there's a lot of just like there's like a level 99 super boss. There's like a couple super bosses and stuff. It's just like a gear check.
Hmm.
The post game is very grindy and maybe not the greatest thing in the world, but it does tickle a brain thing. I don't know. It's like it has an MMO brain tickle thing that I enjoy.
Oh, trust me, I'm a
Um,
Borderlands player. I don't mind grinding. When I played Borderlands 3 a lot, during college, I'd be writing an essay with one hand and quite literally blind farming Grave Ward with the other hand. Like I wouldn't even be looking at the screen. I would just like understand his attack pattern so well, and I would like literally know where my crosshair had to be so well that I would be actually using one hand to farm, and
hey
then I just
James,
look back to like save quit.
have you ever played Final Fantasy 14?
No, I actually did. I was gonna say I had Final Fantasy 15 on my wish list a while ago. I don't know why I got rid of it.
Yeah, well, 15 is the game, and then 14 is the MMO. Well,
Hmm.
I have a heckin' deal for you. You should actually try 14 because
Hmm.
I don't have this option, but you technically can. If you play Final Fantasy 14, it's free to play Final Fantasy 14 plus the first expansion. You play for free until a certain level or whatever. You can basically play that game for free for a really long time.
I see.
Um, and it'd be totally worth trying. And if you like it, then I would play it with you.
Hmm.
But I
Yeah, so it
cannot play it for
says
free
yeah, it
because I
says
paid
yeah,
for it.
includes a 30-day free game trial for all newly created service accounts.
Oh well, no, 14 isn't even just 30-day. It is you literally can play that game for free until up to level 60 and like up to Heaven's Ward, the first expansion. So
Oh,
you can
okay,
just play
that's
the
cool.
game for you can play that game for a really long time for
Hmm.
free. And I'm about to be at the first expansion, so if you do enjoy it, yeah, that game is really
Well,
good. 14. And 15 is good as a single player thing. But yeah, we could talk about that after the podcast, and then it'll give me a reason to play 14 because no, I don't think I have any
hmm.
friends who play Final Fantasy 14. Well, that's not true. I have a couple friends, but not like active people I talk to that much.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah, I might download that this week.
yeah, that would be
Mayhaps.
worth checking out. Well, the thing about 14 is how many MMO? What's your MMO experience?
Crap. I played Adventure Quest Worlds when I was younger and like Maple Story, like the Flash MMOs. Crap. There was one other that I played. When I was a little older. I can't remember though. But like I have enough experience with MMOs to like understand like
Hmm.
the loops and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think 14 is really cool because it lets you play. It has that RuneScape thing where you can play as every single class at any time. You can just switch
Hmm.
between them. And there's life skill, so you can like mine and do whatever,
Yeah.
craft and do all that stuff. But it's one of those things where it's just like, oh, you want to play tank archetype or healer or DPS? Well, here you can switch at any time. Level everyone up, max everyone. Who cares?
Hmm.
I like that freedom to kind of do whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
And the combat's pretty fun. Like it is that like tab based combat, but it has glowy floors that you need to avoid. So like the floors will glow, and
Floor
pretty much
glue.
pretty much everything in that game is dungeons that are 4-man dungeons or like 8-man or whatever. They have like other dungeons that are like raids and stuff.
Hmm.
But you're gonna be playing with like randos, and actually they just added a feature, and they're adding this where you can play the whole game pretty much single player. Like they have AI now for like all the dungeons. Well, I don't know if it's all of them, but they've been adding AI if you
Hmm.
don't want to talk to people, which
You
that's
don't want
nice.
to talk to people.
Well, okay, to be fair, in 14, depending on your role, so there's healer, tank, DPS. You get two
Hmm.
DPS, a tank, and a healer, and there's like a queue, so you'll queue up for it, and it's like a roll queue, which is nice.
I see.
But the thing is, tank, you have to aggro all the mobs in the area, which I started as playing a healer, and now I play it like a tank.
Hmm.
But when you're a healer or when you're a tank, you aggro all the enemies in a dungeon, and then the other players are supposed to kill the DPS are supposed to kill them. Whatever, the healer then heals and does all that stuff. So everyone has a role to play, and it can be a little intimidating if it's your first time and you're playing with people who are like veterans and they just want to like clear the content really quick, and you're messing up or something like that. So yeah,
Hmm.
it can be intimidating. I don't know, with the random people.
Yeah. That actually reminded me. Not gonna get like too into it because it would take a while, but I've recently been playing this game called Fangs. It's like one of those MOBAs where it's just about team fighting, basically. Like there aren't creeps. You just kind of round based like team fight, like kill the enemy team. Um, and it's like a newer game, and people were talking about oh, the assassins in this game are broken, and like in the game's Discord, because there's like a Discord with like a whole community Discord, like the devs are in there and everything. And so I'm sitting here like, assassins are broken. Well, why do you think that? And somebody said, because I can't. You have to not 1v1 them. And I'm sitting
Hmm.
here like, well, so what do you think an assassin's job is?
Well, yeah, it's like, why does
Like
this
they're
character? I'm playing as a healer. Why are these DPS out DPSing me? That's
like I'm,
weird.
I'm like you know they're supposed to kill you if you're alone, right? And like that, it really hit me. Like it's not even that these guys are like particularly bad players. Like they play other games, but I think like recently the essence of lots of roles have like been lost in some games in like the attempt to sort of just like water them down so it's easier to digest. Like tanks aren't supposed to be easy to kill. No,
And
normally
then,
if, like yeah, normally if there's a good tank player, you actually have to ignore them. And like
but
yeah.
also tanks probably shouldn't be able to kill people easily, and healers should again. This is kind of the thing what Overwatch does because it's kind of boring
Hmm.
to play a healer or a tank in Overwatch. So they keep trying to incentivize and spice it up, but at the same time, it's like I play mainly healer or tank in Overwatch,
Hmm.
and support is fun. You can get kills like on people like Zenyatta, stuff like that. I but it's not as fun as like a DPS, I guess. I don't know, and they're trying to make
Yeah.
it balanced in a way where people actually want to play these roles, and then you have to kind of make everyone kind of does everything at the end of the day.
Because I think the reality is like as we could talk all day about like the difference between old school gamers and like newer gamers, but I think like lots of people are kind of chasing dopamine. They're chasing like those big moments where, oh, I did a lot of damage that fight, or oh, I like stunned everybody and they all died. And it's like, well, what if you stunned everybody and then your teammate did the damage, and then after when one of them is still alive and they use a big ultimate to try to turn the fight, your healer just keeps you alive. That's a
Yeah,
crazy idea. What if everybody chipped in? What if it
I
wasn't all
think
about you?
I think 14 does a good job with that with the roles where I like playing tank feels really fun. I haven't
Hmm.
played a DPS yet. I played healer. Healer also is kind of fun, but a little bit stressful because you have to deal with like mistakes if people are getting hit, and you do want to do damage. So like a good healer in 14 does damage while you're healing, like you intermittently do damage, which is
Yeah.
cool. But I don't know that I think it's always going to be difficult to make healer fun and engaging in any kind of game, just because I don't know. There's something about it
Mm-hmm.
that's I think it's easier to have that dopamine hit when if you're fighting other players or you're killing monsters and stuff like that, rather
Mm-hmm.
than just like keeping your own teammates alive. And also, you're the first person who's going to get blamed for everything if anything goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a thankless position.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
don't know.
I mean, yeah, what
Yeah.
I've found is that there's lots of the time there's a bigger there's like a bigger gap between how people feel in different roles when it's a PVE game and a PvP. There's a big gap between how people feel about their roles in the PVE versus PvP. Like, I think generally you'll actually see tanks feel a lot better in PVE because like people are going to aggro you because that's how their AI works, right? Like,
Hmm.
and in turn you can be unkillable because the devs know, oh well, they're always just going to be aggroed, so they shouldn't die easily. And also in turn, you can get a lot of OP stuns because nobody's going to feel the AI don't feel bad when they're stunned.
Yeah, that's true. And you get a
Um,
lot of you get all those different like crowd control abilities where you're just doing stuns like you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with that mindset a lot, and of
Hmm.
just like, yeah, make everyone but if it's a PVE, make everyone bust it, and then they're all having fun. Like if you
Yeah.
all have busted kind of stuff, you're all having fun. That's cool.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to balance it for other players, and once other players are involved, it's always like crazy hard to balance things,
Yeah.
especially if you consider a game that is it's actually kind of impressive how well Dark Souls, like the Souls games PvP feels a lot of the time, because those
Hmm.
games, I mean Elden Ring I think doesn't actually feel that fun because I do think they took the mentality of, yeah, just let the player be busted if they want to be, which is
Yeah.
fun in PvE, but then when you're invading someone, it's like three people shooting like 1,000 beams at you and you just die instantly. And you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, this isn't the PvP game, I guess."
And I also think, but to on the other side of what I said about like tanks, feeling great in PVE, healers actually feel a little bit worse in PVE, for a couple of reasons. Like, I think that you have a less of an important job. There's also less people actually trying to do things to you, so your play isn't nearly as reactive as it would be in a multiplayer game because nobody's actually trying to like. It's very rare that enemies will try to stop you from healing in like one of those games, right? Or in PvE games. Like some of them do have like maybe a sniper or like a assassin style character that'll like maybe go invis and it's like, oh, I have to watch out for the assassin or something. But it's not nearly as frequent as in a multiplayer game, especially at higher levels where people understand the target priority.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, and it's kind of funny in both those scenarios. The DPS is always just going to be probably having fun.
Yeah, DPS is always, I do damage.
It's so weird. I'm always so afraid to play a DPS in any video game. I'm always taking a supportive role. I think I'm too afraid to like take a slot as DPS, and then it's like
Hmm.
I feel like the pressure's on you to like be like getting all the kills and all that stuff, rather than being
Yeah.
like in a supportive role. Yeah,
Actually, now that I really think about it, there is a bit of a difference in how DPS feels in PvE versus PvP because some players that play DPS roles are very competitive, so they really want to feel like their opponent tried everything and they like still lost, which you may not necessarily get with an AI. But other people may just want to see the big numbers go off. So like they depending on the kind of person you are, you may get more satisfaction from one or the other.
I think one of the big things about DPS in like a competitive sense too is it usually a DPS will have the most ability to single-handedly influence a match. Like
Hmm.
if you're playing a support in certain games, and you're doing the old adage of like, "Oh, my team sucks," whatever. I mean, most of the time it's probably not the case, but and sometimes your team can actually be kind of bad. And when you're a support, you kind of can't carry as much as like a
Hmm.
DPS. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's more carry potential to like swing a game if you're really good at a DPS. You can get kills, but you can't. heal a DPS to play better. Like you can't heal a
Hmm.
DPS so hard they play better at the game. You know what I mean? And that
Yeah.
can be frustrating. And same thing with tank too. It's like you can be the best tank in the world putting your shield up. Well, if your teammates aren't behind the shield, then it doesn't really matter.
Hmm.
You don't have as much you don't have as much pull as
Yeah,
someone
and
like a DPS.
that kind of brings us to the conversation of like why the roles have changed in lots of games now. Like why healers suddenly are able to do damage. Why tanks are suddenly able to wipe a team because they ult them all and then they cleave them down or something. Because at the end of the day, the best way to stop another like player's plan is to just kill them.
Yeah, and I think it's just because, and I've had this feeling at least in Overwatch where IQ is support, and I'm like, why am I even playing this game? It's like I'm doing homework. Like, why am I subjecting myself to play the supportive role when I'm getting games where people are flaming me and they're also just not doing what they're supposed to do? And it's like, what? Like, I should probably want to try to play DPS, right? Because that's the fun part. But it's different fun for different people, and it's just these like PvP games. It's just hard. I
Hmm.
kind of like that's kind of why I like the Team Fortress 2 or like these Call of Duty shooters because everyone's kind of on the same page. And like TF2 especially, it's like, okay, well, here's the classes. Just, everyone's pretty much on the same page. And there's lower stakes. Like it always feels like there's so many stakes involved in newer games. Like everything is
Hmm.
competitive. And it's just competitive with team play when you're not playing with a team. It doesn't feel good to lose in those situations, and
Yeah.
everyone's like super angry or whatever. It's just like a game like a Team Fortress 2. You hop in a server, you're just shooting. Like no one cares what happens. I mean, some
Hmm.
people might, but like no one really cares how a game goes in like TF2. Just queue
Yeah.
up for another thing. Who cares?
Yeah. I think
It's just fun to play.
a big part of it is that in the last 10 years, right, the FPS and MOBA genres have both really blown up. And FPS it is a little competitive inherently, but I think when you have games like TF2, it can break away from that a bit. But FPSs and MOBAs are inherently quite competitive. So when everybody's like, "Oh, well, this FPS and MOBA is doing very well, I'm gonna make my own FPS or MOBA," and suddenly now we've got this big oversaturation of at least the FPS genre. The MOBA genre is kind of past its oversaturation point, where like now it's mostly League and Dota. Um,
Yeah, no one's really making new MOBAs. Remember Heroes of New Earth? That was a thing for a
yeah,
while where
nobody's making
MOBA
new
players
MOBAs
didn't
because they
even want to
realize they're
play it.
hard to make.
Yeah, it turns out it's hard to balance like 4,000 billion item builds and 99,000 champions and all that stuff.
Yeah, MOBAs are also very like they're also like just really hard to play and like they do have some inherent problems. Like we can talk all we want about like oh every community just complains about their game. Everybody hates their own game, but I think when you look at MOBAs, it's a little different. I do think there is a very unique frustration there that I don't think you really get with other genres in the same way. And it's a problem that I honestly don't know if it can be solved or not because MOBAs have been MOBAs have been around for pretty much 20 years at this point, right? And they've been developing in all sorts of points, but that like just little or that major pain point where it's like they're just very frustrating to both get into, to master, and even after mastery there's still like a million things that may frustrate you. It seems like that hasn't improved very much.
Well, as someone who's tried to play MOBAs and bounces off them quite often, closest thing coming to enjoying it being League of Legends. I tried Dota 2. Dota 2 has a lot of
Hmm.
weird things. Like it's just here's what I find fun about a MOBA. I want to do the team fight. That's fun. Here's what I
Hmm.
don't find fun about MOBA. It's pretty much everything else. Just I don't like the laning. I'm like, or I'm in a lane. That's cool. Oh wait, I need to put down the ward at this. Like, okay, well, I need to put down a ward. Where do I do that? All right, well, watch 15 YouTube videos to know optimal warding locations for everything, and then also game sense. Okay, well,
Hmm.
play 300 matches. All right, you kind of understand wards now. Cool. All right, well, now what? There's pick ban at the beginning. Okay, well, learn every matchup, or at least every popular picked character or whatever. It's like kind of understand that. All right, cool. I've learned every matchup. All right, now learn how to play your character very well. It's like, okay, well, learn your role. And then it's like, okay, well, what if someone wants to go mid and I play mid? Well, all right, you got to learn a secondary. So learn how to play top as well. It's like, well, what if someone? All right, well, learn how to play jungler. Learn how to play every role at least decently, so you can always be around. And at this point, you're yelling at your teammates for making mistakes because you were the person making mistakes before getting kind of yelled at. It's like, why did you put a ward there? And then now you're toxic and yelling at people.
Hmm.
And then eventually, a couple thousand hours in, you're finally able to play your first match,
Yes.
and then you're playing the game, and then you're like, oh man, this sucks because I know everything that I'm doing. That there comes a point in every competitive game where you're having fun at the very beginning because you don't know anything. So you're like, oh, I'm having so much fun because I have no idea why I'm bad.
Hmm.
And then you hit a point where you have the least amount of fun, where I'm still bad, but I know what I'm doing wrong. So
Yeah.
if you're in a fighting game, it's like I'm trying to do my input, but I'm doing it wrong, or I know why I failed. And now you're just mad at yourself because you know why you're doing what you're doing is wrong, but you're not good enough. And if you succumb that, if you make it through that, then you're at the point where you're good. One, you're now
Yes.
playing at a level where you're better than all your friends, so no one's gonna want to play with you.
Ah, the classic.
Or yeah, or you have, but you're too bad to play like a competitive level, like a tournament level. So you have a choice. Do you then become a professional player and then hate the game because you're playing it so competitive that every minor thing, it's like, oh my god, I can't believe that the cooldown is 1.5 and they just nerf, and like you're playing it at such a competitive level that everything annoys you and you're so far away from the fun you initially had that you're just at this point where you're just upset. I just think you're always going to be upset in these competitive games. I don't think anyone has fun post a certain point of time.
Yeah, it's very hard. I mean, I also think part of it is some of these people, and I don't know if anybody wants to hear this. There may be people on the podcast that would hate to hear this. Maybe you need to go outside. Maybe you're not enjoying anything because you don't go outside.
I don't. I mean, yeah, but yeah. I think you need to step away from games for a
Yeah.
while and just then do other stuff and then come back to it.
Hmm.
Um, but it's things like Like I'm thinking of Rocket League. I like Rocket League. When I first played Rocket League, I had no idea what I was doing. I was wearing hats, toppers, and all that stuff, playing whatever car I wanted. I was having a blast. Then I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to use the Octane. I'm going to take off my topper. I'm going to really try to play the game. Then you
Hmm.
kind of are getting a little annoyed because you're playing competitive, but it's like, oh, I feel like I'm getting better. But then there comes a point where you're watching YouTube videos and like practicing for hours, like doing tech. And then you get into a match and someone's still way better than you'll ever be. And you're like, am I having fun still? And it
Hmm.
only feels fun when you kind of win, and then when you lose, it feels even worse. But I think that's a mentality thing, and
Yeah.
it's just competitive games. And I really don't know if anyone at a pro level actually has fun playing competitive games. Maybe fighting
Yeah.
games. I
I
would
mean,
say, yeah. I don't
yeah. I
know.
think the general thing is, it's like it's kind of like sports where the grind is like it's the grind. It's you're doing you're doing lots of practice for long hours, pretty much every day of the week. Sometimes even on weekends. All for one game that you might, or not one game all the time, but like one tournament maybe you might lose. Then if you
Yeah,
lose, you feel bad. But I think it's to be honest, maybe it's just mental illness that keeps people going because when you're chasing like a trophy or a victory or something like that, your brain just works differently sometimes. The high you get off of just simply winning is it's like not, at least in my opinion, it's not something that you can completely encompass within logic. Like it just kind of happens, and like it feels good.
yeah. I think that is probably the big mentality thing, and I think a lot of professional players of video games, and I'm assuming also in like actual sports, have like work on their mental game of being like trying to, I don't know, trying to keep cool. And
Hmm.
I guess it really depends. Like, do you find the game you're playing enjoyable, or do you only find winning enjoyable? Do you,
Yeah.
because can you say you had fun playing a Dota match after 50-minute Dota match if you lose versus if you win? Did you still have
Hmm.
fun? Is kind of the thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of, at least for my own personal playstyle, I'm pretty much gonna say no. Which, and then it's like, what am I doing here? You
Hmm.
know. So
It's
that's why I'm
also
more of a single player kind of guy, or like cooperative,
yeah.
I guess.
It's also a little bit of what you tie your satisfaction to, right? Like some people are just satisfied knowing, well, I played well, even regardless of the result. I know I did like these things right. I know I'm getting better, stuff like that. But for some other people, they do need like the validation of a positive result. It's not. It is something you can work on, but I think that some people are just inherently different, and that's why I think it's important to have non-competitive games. And like I think we have too many, honestly,
Yeah, it's just a
especially in the
shame
shooter
that
genre.
like competitive esporty kind of makes like infinite games as a service games kind of make the money where
Hmm.
you can just we'll have a game, we'll have an Overwatch, and we'll just pump money into that. We're not gonna make any kind of like single player stuff, but I don't
Hmm.
know. But I think on the other side of the coin, something like the Final Fantasy 14 being a more cooperative thing has moments to be like, oh, that's kind of a good infinite service thing. Although
Hmm.
I haven't gotten high enough level in that game to play raids and deal with people doing really high level content where I'm sure there's much there's the same competitive slash I don't know anger there at any high level gameplay stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
This was an interesting episode delving into what it means. It started with hot dogs as a sandwich and really
Yes.
delved into what it means to play a competitive game and how it
What it means
affects
to be
different
human.
people. Yeah, what it means. Detroit Become Human, a game. A game.
Oh no.
All right, I think we got to end the podcast here. Well, but if you have any messages to send us to the HYEP podcast at gmail.com. That's HYEP podcast at gmail.com. I have been Matt, aka Matt Fondude, and this is James.
Yes, I've been James, aka James 04E.
And that's a podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Yes.